atheist has as much faith as I do. It's not like, oh, they need to. God doesn't care if I believe in God.
We came here to be totally immersed, and you're immersed, so
Yeah.
have at it. It's Thursday, December 12th, 2024, and here Elizabeth and I are to talk again to each other, and we thank anyone who is kindly joining us. And of course, anything we say is not set in stone. We're just bouncing thoughts off of each other and trying to converse in love.
Yep. Just enjoying conversation.
That's
together.
right.
Yeah.
Together. And you are invited to come and join us once we figure out how to do this a little more confidently.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. I get these emails from James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, which I read years and years ago and ended up on his newsletter list. And I surprisingly just really enjoy the newsletter. So I've never unsubscribed, and I'm still getting the newsletter every week and still enjoying it. So I thought it might be fun to just read what he had to say today and kind of take it one item at a time, and we can just talk about it and see what we think about it. Does that sound good?
Yeah, see if I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah. You never know what he's going to say. So what he usually does is he has 3 ideas from him and then 2 quotes from other people and then a question to kind of think about. And they're not always related. They're just kind of nuggets of wisdom, things to think about. So here's the first one. The key is to enjoy hanging out on the edge. That is, you find it interesting to attempt things one step beyond where you are right now. It could be the edge of your ability or the edge of your knowledge or the edge of your network. If you reach, but just a little, and you do it every week, then you'll take on challenges that are manageable enough that you win most of the time, but meaningful enough that you improve as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the first idea, I guess, on stretching yourself a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which felt applicable to me because I just started this new job and I am learning new things all day, every day. I'm working at a tailor shop and I know how to sew. I've sewn a lot, but I haven't done this kind of sewing a lot. And I've been thinking lately, maybe this is too much. Maybe it's too hard to have something where there's new things every single day. You can't just learn how to do it and then do it because people bring in the craziest things. You just never know what it is they're going to throw at you and say, hey, can fix this, So it was good to read that and think, yeah, actually it's probably good for me to be in a situation where I'm challenged. It's not just always hems or, not always the same work coming in, but that every once in a while you have to figure out, yeah, how should I figure out how to reconstruct this garment to be what they want? So anyway, very, very applicable at the moment.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts?
I think we each want to live in the sweet spot between boredom and being overwhelmed, being underwater. Whatever that is for us, we don't want to be bored, and we want to feel competent, but we want to feel a little bit explory.
Yeah, a little challenged. So yeah, I thought that was a good thought, and helpful. Yeah, for me to think. Yeah, it's healthy for me to not be always comfortable. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay if I'm not always comfortable in this job.
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
in engineering, I'm always telling everybody this job will make you cry.
Because it's hard.
You cry. Yeah, it is really hard. So sometimes you are a little, hopefully for only a moment or a part of a day,
Yeah.
Over. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I enjoyed that. I was curious at the beginning. It says the key is, and I was like, well, that's vague.
mean that's going a little too far, right? So, but whatever.
Yeah, cute but
Hyperbole.
I don't know. We'll give it to you. So, anyway, that was a good one. The next one is your biological age is the number of days you've lived. I'd say it's the number of years you've lived, but whatever. Your psychological age is the number of thoughts you've entertained. Your sociological age is the number of contributions you've made. And that's it.
Well, it's
That
hard to argue with that. It's kind of a fresh thought.
yeah, it's a fresh thought. It's like, yeah, I don't really think about it. And it did make me think, oh, I think psychological age, then I would be very old. I like to think about a lot of different thoughts. But sociological age, other than my kids, I don't know that I've contributed all that much. So I'm working on that. I'm working on branching out. How about you?
It's such a fresh thought. I don't even dare comment. I'd have to
Yeah,
process that for a while.
yeah, yeah. But it makes you think. So that's kind of fun. I like
Yeah,
that
yeah.
about. Okay, the third one is two simple rules. You get better at what you practice, is the first one. Number two is everything is practice. Look around, and you may be surprised by what people are practicing each day. If you consider each moment a repetition, what are most people training for all day long? Many people are practicing getting mad on social media. Others are practicing the fine art of noticing how they have been wronged. Still more have mastered the craft of making plans, but never following through. But of course, it doesn't have to be that way. What are you practicing?
That is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm practicing stopping
Yes.
my
Yes.
mindfulness practice, and it's just amazing. And I just noticed, I've been singing in this Christmas caroling quartet for this is the ninth season, and I am learning so much.
Yeah. Like what?
Oh, well, a couple of things. When you're singing in a quartet, you can increase your volume, then bring it back, and you have a cool part here, and then it gets kind of boring there, and you kind of want to hear everybody. Oh, I heard the alto doing that cool thing there, and then I heard the tenor doing that cool thing, and then that bass goes do 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 do, and so that's one thing I'm learning is a personal awareness of this what I call part weaving. Let your part come in and out, back off and come out. And then
Yeah.
I'm learning about music theory and the most basic, fundamental, physical, the dominant and the tonic, and the perfect authentic cadence, and how satisfying those things are. And when I arrange some things sometimes, everybody needs a cool part, which is a little I mentioned that before. Everybody needs a cool part. And so, yeah, just learning, just
Yeah.
doing the same thing, but learning.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you're still present after 9 years of doing it. But I noticed with my quartet, because I am in my second year of doing a quartet, and so most of the songs we sang last year, and we're still kind of still learning and getting familiar with them, but we're much more familiar with them this year than we were last year. And I find that I can kind of hear the other people's parts more now because I'm not so focused on remembering my part and learning the notes and getting it. And I love that idea that as you get the technical aspects of it down, you can start making music.
Right.
And I think that takes time, especially with a group, to be able to get to the point where you're not worrying about stuff, you're not thinking about, if you're doing things right and you're actually starting to make music.
Right.
So yeah, that's
So
fun.
you are practicing as you repeat things.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so fun. And I'll just before we move on, I am right now practicing loving myself. That is a big practice that I've taken on and I'm trying to do. And I pause every once in a while, which is stopping, kind of like what you said. But I'll think, what would someone who loves themselves do? And I never know what is going to be the answer. Sometimes it's like, breathe. And I'll be like, oh, yeah. Oh, take some deep breaths. Or sometimes it's like, she go use the bathroom. Like, oh, yeah, I really should. I didn't even notice. Or sometimes, and a lot of times, it's get a drink of water.
Mindfulness, yeah, exactly. Sometimes mindfulness is just, wow, I need a drink of water. I need to go
Yeah.
potty. No wonder
Yeah.
I feel so antsy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not mad at this guy.
I just need to meet my physical needs. And a few times there have been really big answers that are changing and shaping my life as I go. And I'm trying to learn how to trust that, which is kind of hard and scary. But that's something I'm trying to practice right now. So, and a lot of times as I'm going, I don't remember to ask, all the time. But sometimes if I'm just driving, I'll just stop and be like, oh, what? And it's really nice. It's amazing how quickly I get centered, um, and focused when I start to think about that. So it's very, very interesting. I'm thoroughly enjoying that practice.
Me
So,
too. Me too.
all right, what is the next? Okay, so now we're moving on. Those are ideas from him. Now there's two quotes from others. This one is from entrepreneur Ben Chestnut on the importance of momentum. Never sacrifice momentum. I might know a better path, but if we've got a lot of momentum, if everyone's united and they're marching together and the path is okay, just go with the flow. I may eventually nudge them down a new path, but never stop the troops mid march.
That is wise.
Isn't that interesting?
I usually call it energy.
Mm-hmm.
I call it energy. Energy is a precious thing, and if someone's got energy, just cheer them on.
Yeah.
it,
I really need that because I think I'm very tempted to course correct people constantly. And that all that does is drive their energy away. That they were like getting excited about something. Oh, well, this is the way to do it. No, 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 no. Just let. And I've been doing that, I think, a little better with my younger kids. And it's fun to just watch what they do without me saying, oh, this is the way to do it. You know what I mean?
it is a little dash of additional delight in life,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, because I get to watch them exploring and being themselves and figuring things out, and I get to watch how they do it, which may be better than what I was going to be. Oh, this is the way you do it, right? Like it might be better. So,
Mm.
and definitely better for what they want. That's one thing I'm learning from one daughter where when I do a craft, I want to do it really well. I want things just so, but that's not what she's going for. She's going for the experience. She loves mixing things. She loves experimenting. And for her, if I say, well, here's the recipe, follow it very carefully, and you'll get the right outcome, that just killed the whole point of the whole thing because that's not the point. For her, the point is to explore and play with the stuff. And so it's just fun to watch her and be like, oh, she's doing a whole different thing than what I am doing when I'm doing a similar thing. So kind of fun.
That's an important leadership, emotional intelligence point, isn't it?
Yeah,
What he's saying. Yeah.
I think so. I think it's a good one. Okay, and then here's the second quote from novelist Ernest Hemingway on acting with confidence while living with humility. And this one is short, but he says, be humble after, but not during the action.
Hmm.
Which, again, I'm thinking about work because I'm getting used to new work, but I I'm watching my boss and she is so confident. She's been doing this job for 25 years. She she's like, I'm good at this. And I watch and she makes mistakes that she doesn't notice that she makes. And for me, I'm very much like, wait, we got to do it just right. But it's really fun to watch her confidence and how far it takes her, and to try and be like, I don't have to approach every new job in fear. I can say, oh, I can do this. Let me figure out how I'm going to do it. Right.
Yeah.
Which is what she's doing. And I feel like when I'm like he's saying, in the middle of the action of the project, if I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure if I'm that good or not, that doesn't help me get the job done well. um I've got to be like, no, I'm doing this, I'm controlling this fabric, it's doing what I want it to do, we're doing it's going to turn out right. And then afterward, if someone says, I don't have to be like, I'm so amazing, right, all the time, but the confidence is very helpful in the moment. So that's kind of what I thought about when he said it. But you seemed a little more like, I don't know about this. So what were you thinking?
Well, actually, I'm getting on board. This reminds me of our cousin. He has a doctorate in engineering. Most of us engineers are just bachelor degree, maybe masters, right? He's
Right.
got a doctorate. One time he told me, he said, Tom, having a doctorate, I really don't know a lot more than others, but I know that if I don't know, nobody knows. So I got to figure it out. So that's kind of the mixture of,
Yeah.
he knows it's going to be really hard, but
Yeah.
he knows there's nobody better.
Right. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Yeah. And I'm starting to realize more and more, I do have a skill. I've always thought, oh, everyone can sew. You know what I mean? I watch my boss and she doesn't feel that way. She feels like I can do this well. And if I can't do it, nobody else can do it better. Exactly what you're saying. And I'm
Right.
starting to be like, well, I'm not as experienced as she is, but I should value and just own the skill that I have and be like, well, I can do this. And if somebody brings me something and they don't know how to sew, well, I'm the only one amongst the two of us that knows how to do this, right?
Right.
So I'm going to have to figure it out.
Well,
So,
and in running a business,
yes,
one of the biggest dawnings on me is there is no perfect company out there.
yeah,
There just doesn't exist. So if we're doing a good job almost all the time, pretty well, we're
yeah,
doing a good job. And it is
yeah,
true. The alternatives are not perfection.
this is true. And yes, and I need to hear that because again, I'm like so scared every time I work on someone's clothes. What if I mess it up? Well, sometimes we do mess stuff up. And it just happens. If you want someone to sew your clothes, it might get messed up. But most of the time, almost all the time, we do a great job or an okay job or a satisfactory job, like so yeah, I think I'm still very, got some perfectionism going on that I'm learning to kind of, you know, get rid of a little bit and be able to say, I can do this okay. It'll be fine when I'm done with it.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe our perception gets skewed by the assembly line mass production that we experience because things come off of the assembly line in a very high level of uniformity, where in the service industry it's not going to be like that.
No, it's not. And we do a good job and we try to, but yeah, it's not going to be perfectly straight. It's not going to be perfectly whatever. I mean, we can't.
Right, it will be like 200 years ago when you ordered a gun. It
Right.
was made to order, and it's not exactly like the last one you got.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And that's true. That's true. If you're comparing yourself and your ability with, and I am, when I get something in, I say, look how beautifully done this is, and it has to look that way when I get done with it. That's so much pressure to put on me. I'm not a machine. I don't, like I'm doing a bunch of different things every day, not always the same thing. So I'm not specializing. I'm flying by the seat of my pants. I'm doing a great job.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of fun. And yeah, I'm learning, trying to learn to have fun with some of the stress. Oh, this reminds me of a thought I had in the last couple weeks, not related to anything we're talking about, but it occurred to me that stress is very related to excitement.
Ding! Me too, me too.
So what if I'm like, oh, I'm so stressed? Well, no, actually, I think partly I'm just excited about all this stuff I've got going on. And it's a lot. I mean, because in my context, I've been spending the last 25 years laying around reading for the most part and not participating in life for the most part, being an observer. And just in the last couple months, I've jumped in and actually, since I started saying, what would someone who loved themselves do? I've been I'm participating and I've got some clarity and direction and I'm going and I'm like, I feel like I'm going down a mountain on a sled and it's like so fun, but it's also like, I don't know what's at the bottom and I hope I make it, you know? So I think it's very, I'm trying to embrace the excitement and not so much, push away or dread the stress, but embrace it and say, wow, isn't it exciting? All this stuff I have going on,
Yeah.
which is hard because at the same time, I know I have to manage this. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily want to be going down a mountain at full speed all the time. I don't, that maybe isn't the excitement I want all the time. So
Right.
yeah, I have to learn to pull back. But yeah, it's very interesting. It's an exciting time.
It's exciting. I go so far sometimes as to say I'm abusing adrenaline right now, or I'm overdose. I'm over ODing on adrenaline. You gotta there's a yeah you gotta
Yeah,
you gotta set your limits.
yeah, yes. Okay. How does this action feed the next? How does this project make the next project easier?
Hmm. I don't know.
Which I today at work, it was helpful when I was getting kind of stressed and just uptight and like I don't know if I like this job. I was loving it at first and now I'm like I just don't know. I suddenly was like, when I get done with this, am I going to know how to sew a little bit better? Yes. Okay, then. It's okay. It's okay if it doesn't turn out perfectly or if I have to redo it 3 times or whatever. I'm going to be a better seamstress than I was yesterday. So that's helpful. So, like, this action is helping the next.
What
So,
what I can relate to is something kind of in the context of what you may have heard when we were kids, where someone said they went up and asked somebody what are you doing, and one guy says, "What are you making?" $3.50 an hour, and the next person says, "What are you making?" "Bricks." And the other guy says, "What are you making?" "A wall." The other guy says, "A cathedral." You know,
right.
the context the context part of this little thought really resonates with me that what I'm doing my life's mission, you know,
Yes.
and whatever it is, I'm, you know, stories galore, right? My colleague in Kenya and Nepal and the whole bit and all the passions and frustrations that just kind of melted away when I finally found which direction to go, which candle to light instead of cursing the darkness. So the context part of that saying really resonates with me.
Yes.
It's he's limiting it in this thought to it's helping what's going to come next, but in the huge big picture, it's really powerful to me that what I'm doing right now I'm living my mission. I'm
Yeah.
saving the world. I'm I'm fulfilling my eternal purpose.
Yes. And that I think, so I'm starting a business and it's taken me so much longer than I thought it would. And it's a business where I'll be sewing. And that's why the thought was so helpful to me when I thought it. I will be a better seamstress when I'm done. and I can apply it to the thing that I'm excited about and that I really care about. The job's great. And, I get into the mindset of she's going to fire me. And she really might. She can't afford to keep me if I'm not useful enough, and when I'm thinking that, I might get fired, it's super stressful. But if I'm thinking I might get fired after this job, after this, project, because I'm not doing that great, but I'm going to know more for the business I'm starting. I'm going to be a better better prepared for what I really want to do.
One
And
more day. I got one more day in.
yeah. Yeah. So, and that puts it in so much more perspective of the things I'm learning. If I'm just learning so I can get better at this job, well, that's not that exciting, but
Right.
I'm learning so that I can do what I really want to do. So that is exciting.
Yeah.
Well, that's the end of the email, but I get them once a week and I love them. They're always interesting.
Nice seeds for conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about spirituality?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Lay
What
it
if,
on me.
well, lately I've been struggling with doubt. Um, Not struggling with it, but experiencing it. Just that because I've been listening to this, because I've been doing this, what would someone who loves themselves do? And there's a very clear voice that comes, or a feeling or whatever, that answers that question every time. And I am trusting it. I'm starting this business based on it. I'm starting the kind of business based on it. I took this job I'm doing based on it. Like, I'm really going all in, and it's scary. It's scary to be like, do I trust my intuition that much that everything I'm doing is based on this intuition that I'm getting? And um yeah, partly it's scary and partly it's like, well, if it's for the first time, it's the first time I felt any clarity and direction for a long, long time. I'm loving it. And I'm just going to go with it. And what am I risking? I'm not risking that much. So, anyway, that's kind of what I've been thinking about. Can I trust my intuition?
Yeah, I think that's a really important subject because you can't trust your intuition. I would submit from one angle, you can't trust your intuition. It's energy, it's inspiration, it's something that I mean that I feel wrong saying you can't trust your intuition. That's probably not true. But gee,
But it feels silly to think you can.
you can. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. You obviously have to trust but verify.
Hmm. Yes, which is why I often think of Jesus's phrase, by their fruits you shall know them.
Yes, wow, wow, boy, you just made me really happy. By their fruits shall you know them. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've been burned too many times. I have. You're triggering me because I've been
Oh,
hurt a lot. People just go off on these wild adventures that are patently harmful, and you gotta. I think you ought to be got to be careful with intuition. I had a boss who read a book. He and his wife read the book, and they came to work one day, and they were all excited because they were going to do this great new direction for the company. And basically, it didn't make the company better. Um, it kind of ruined a beautiful thing.
mm,
Uh, or take any, there's lots and lots of grumpy old pontifications about the prosperity gospel, where people, there, I, the law of attraction.
mhm.
I mean, that is real. That is real. The energy, I haven't studied it. I've avoided it because I have um, it's paradoxical because how does a person get to the direction they want to go? Well, they need to follow their dream with all their might, and if it's not right, they'll find out. The
Right.
problem is you could really hurt a lot of people along the way. So, yeah, I think you have to just be really careful that you're following the golden rule. That's
Yes.
I say go with your intuition. Make sure you're following the golden rule.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I feel like with the things I'm doing, I don't see a lot of risk
Yeah.
to myself or anyone else, other than me saying, I'm starting a business and I'm doing this job. And then maybe next month or in the month or two, I have to say, yeah, it didn't work out and I feel silly.
What's wrong with
My
that, right?
reputation,
Right.
right? I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, well, it didn't work. That's the only thing I'm risking.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah.
I hope it's the only thing I'm risking, but that's a really good point to think about. Like, what else might I be risking?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I confess I'm learning about following intuition. So,
Yeah. Well, and because it feels a little silly. Spirituality in itself feels a little silly, right? You talk to people who are staunch scientist people, or the world is what it is, and you look silly when you're like, actually, I believe whatever it is you believe. And they're like, well, show me the proof. There's nothing I can show that other than the fruits. That's part of why that thought comes to me a lot.
yeah.
I'm happy in having a spiritual life and a full spiritual belief. It's
Yeah.
very, and not just happy. I can point to specific things like I'm living a healthier life because of that.
Yeah.
So there's that. But yeah, you can look really silly.
I don't know if you're asking about the big picture of spirituality. I mean, when you're dead, or when you're dead, you're not dead. Are you asking
Well,
about
I'm not.
no? Because
Well, I don't know. I don't
well,
know.
I was thinking this week. I was thinking, well, there's not really any good reason to think that when you're dead, you're dead. That's not true. But I think there is not really any good reason to doubt all the people who say that they have been in heaven, all the near-death experiencers, or um, there's not a really good reason to doubt the little children that remember other people's lives. So I would say scientifically, there's something there that is very available to study, and a there's no good reason to just discount it unless
Right.
you've got a latent bias. There's just there's no good reason to discount all that because there's enough of it to study. That's the key. There's enough
Right.
of it that you can devise scales and measurements and tests and studies. There's enough data there to study, and if there's enough data, you can do science on it. So if you want to ignore it, that's your latent bias, but there's no real good reason.
Yeah. I think I think there's a good chance that if science were to try to study these things, they wouldn't find anything. And I think
Well,
looking at quantum science and Heisenberg uncertainty principle and just the way particles act, and I think I think there is something there is that does not want to be pinned down,
well,
that doesn't want to be known by science.
right, but okay, you're thinking about getting your little device and doing this.
No,
No,
no.
what do you? Well,
I'm
then let.
saying sometimes if something is measured, it suddenly isn't what it was before.
Well, let me ask you then. if okay, if we want to know what leads to happy populations, we can study all the governments in the world, do make graphs, and come up with different things that have worked out best in all the countries in the world, or all the cities in the world, if cities are where people live. Okay. Likewise, if we want to figure out about these little children's memories or near-death experiences, we can study all these experiences. Are you saying that if I ask all these people questions about what happened to them and try to classify it and formalize the study, it will change it?
I just think it might be slippery.
That's interesting. That doesn't even occur to me. I mean, I
Um,
can't even see the mechanism because are, are you are you are you suggesting that near-death experiences may change in the future if we study them today?
Maybe. Or what am I suggesting? I just I think science may be unable to see spirituality, even if it tries.
Due to the bias of the researcher, or what?
Maybe, or due to the nature of observation, or due to the nature. Science is, well, in my opinion, science is remarkably not, um, what's the word? It's ineffective.
Yes. How do you?
Uh, and it's
Yes, it is.
inconsistent. It's remarkably inconsistent.
And yet, you can study happiness. You can study politics. You can study mental health.
But with questionable um, accuracy,
Oh,
because no one
yes.
can say, we can't ever say, is this accurate? Like when we're doing science to build a rocket ship, if the rocket ship works, we know all the science behind it worked. But when we're studying happiness, until we're like, oh yeah, we're all happy, it worked, like,
And what's happy?
yeah, how do we know that any of that science is real and accurate and consistent? And maybe in 50 years, when they study happiness, they're going to be getting different outcomes.
Right, right.
Um,
That reminds me of the sweet spot between boredom and being
yes.
underwater. Um, right. I think it's important to bring these things up because it's not just spirituality that's hard to study. There's a lot of things that are hard to study: politics, happiness, mental health. It
So
doesn't mean you can't study them.
you can study them, and I would think it would be great for science to go into study. Like that doesn't bother me. I don't think I'll be like, oh, you'll ruin the world because all the results will suddenly change. I'm not trying to say that at all. But I am saying, I guess I'm saying, I just think science is irrelevant to a certain degree. Where, like, if I go 2,000 years ago, people were living happy, productive lives, or they weren't, regardless of whether science was there or not, doing its thing. Now, am I grateful for all? Yes, I love science. I love the results of science. I think it's wonderful. However, when it comes to spirituality or my personal experience of the world and life and God, science is pretty irrelevant to my existence in the world.
I agree with that, and I just very recently come to believe that it either doesn't matter. I either don't care if any atheist ever changes their mind, or I think maybe they're better off just staying atheists. I actually I agree with you. It doesn't matter. We're not here on this may be a heresy, right? I'm proposing. Like nothing we say here is set in stone. We're not here on this earth to believe in God. We're here on this earth to be on this earth.
Yeah. And I've often said, God doesn't care if I believe in God.
Right.
God's going to bless me or not bless me either way. God does not care one bit whether I believe. On the other hand, do I think my belief affects things? Yes, I do believe. I believe actually in faith and the power of faith, but I also don't believe that God cares. And an atheist has as much faith as I do in many things, in lots of things, maybe in more things or, different things, but faith is just as strong for someone who doesn't believe in God as it is for someone who does.
Right. I think it's good for us to have fun on this earth, treat each other well on this earth, and that's what atheists do, and that's what we're
Yeah,
as spirituality, that's what we're supposed to do.
yeah,
Follow our dream and love each other and take good care of each other, walk each other home.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I think your idea of do I care if an atheist believes or not, the only to the degree that changing that would make them happier, and I don't know for sure whether it would or not. I think for some it does, and for some it wouldn't really, and so I personally wouldn't want to lose my belief. I feel like it's very enriching and a part of why I have a rich and happy life is the spirituality that I am involved in. I don't even know what to say, that I acknowledge, that I participate in, that I and so part of me is like, oh, it's a shame you don't get to enjoy that.
yeah, part of me is that way, but I'm starting to see that, you know, we came here to be totally immersed, and you're immersed, so
Yeah,
have at it.
yeah,
I personally, yes, I felt a part of me. I missed believing in the afterlife, and I feel there's a little bit more jazz and excitement in my life, but I don't want to live differently.
no, no, yeah. I do think so. My run in with God that I had, it didn't change my life a lot, but it changed me a lot. Um,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. A little more juice,
yeah, I don't know. I'm different.
spice.
I don't get angry as almost ever. Or if I don't get I get angry. Everyone feels angry, but I don't get angry. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like whatever. It
You're
doesn't really
running with God. I like that.
matter. So I think because I believe in God, because I do believe, I mean, I don't know what God is. I'm not claiming anything about God necessarily other than that God is good and loving. Um, because I believe in God, I know that if the atheists need to know about spirituality or God, they God is able to make that happen. Life is able to make that happen. And the fact that they don't know means they don't need to know. And the fact that I have such a limited, idea of spirituality and it means that I'm supposed to have that. Like it's just not it's not like, oh, they need to it's not like I felt when I was in religion, right? Like, oh, they're lost or whatever. It's just,
Yeah,
okay.
and I already said this, but the way I see, which is possibly pure speculation, how things work is we came into this world to be in this world, and they're doing that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why could I possibly say they need to know about God? They knew about God before. They didn't come here to, you know,
Yeah.
this. I mean, from one perspective, they didn't come here to know about God. They came here to know about
Life.
this.
Yes. Which I actually think life and God are the same thing. So if you're here living life, then you're getting to know God. I mean,
Right.
you're getting to know love and life and all that stuff. I mean, that's nothing we say is set in stone, but I tend to think of God equals life, equals love, equals light, equals, you know, all the things. So, yeah, I mean, the one thing that's hard for me when we talk to people that are so like science, 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 it's hard. I wish we could relate a little better. I wish I didn't feel like, well, I can't really say what I think because they're going to discount it because I don't have anything to back it up in a science way. So I almost feel like they're a little bit close-minded, and so I can't talk to them very freely.
Well,
Um,
yeah. Well, I mean, maybe that's a call. I mean, I feel called to speak the secular language. I mean, there's no other language we can speak. I think the atheists will always be with us, and we have to learn to speak their language. So I think that that's maybe an authentic call that you're feeling. Could it be?
Maybe, although I don't feel a call. I'm not sure what you mean by the call. You mean like a need?
Uh, an inability, a gap to bridge.
Yes. And that's part of why I think it would be fun to invite some of those people to talk to us, because then we can start to maybe figure out how to talk.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that.
I'm not so enlightened that I don't care that people think I'm stupid. You know what I mean?
Well,
So that's
me either.
really hard to talk to an atheist or someone who's super science bound, because if I feel like in their mind, I'm just some dumb person who believes things without having any reason to believe them.
And
Which I don't think is
I
true.
personally feel like I ought to be accountable to them.
I don't.
Interesting. Now that's interesting. 'Cause I was
Yeah,
going to say, I thought you were thinking we might have some disagreements about spirituality.
I do. I do think we might. Yeah. Well, and this I think maybe is it, because the fact that you bring up near death experiences and all those things so much makes me feel like you feel like it's really, really important to have something to say, this is why I can justify believing this. I don't have anything like that. And I don't feel a need to have anything like that. And I feel like that's just a difference between us. And I'm not sure, uh, yeah, what it means, or if we're really disagreeing about anything or not. But maybe we can push on this next time. I think when we talk about spirituality, that's when we get excited and it starts getting interesting. I could be wrong,
Yeah.
but that's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Okay.
all right,
Bye bye.
love you. Bye.